we got a lot of Fairy Tail to talk about, because in this video, I'm going to briefly talk about the new specials, the new spin-off series, the Gray one and the Fairy Tail Zero, but mainly this is going to be a review on the latest chapter of Fairy Tail, and I probably won't talk about the other ones too much more after this video, because for the most part, I'm just going to read them. I don't feel like I need to review them, but they were interesting to say the least. So let's start off with the main chapter of Fairy Tail. Great. Honestly, like, I know there's going to be people that are going to say, Gray's a pussy, fuck Gray, but at the end of the day, anybody, even if you don't have the best relationship with your father, if you be reunited with him after all these years thinking he's dead or some shit, you would be in an emotional state, in a fucked up state. And I felt that that's what this chapter definitely did. And when he was crying, I was like, fuck, man, this is some really sad shit. And I didn't cry or anything like that, but the art, the drawing, when Gray was there in tears and everything, Hiro Mashima going in on that art. I was like, yeah, buddy, that shit looked just incredible, and ultimately it was really sad. I mean, you got Keith in there acting like some wannabe Neferpito from Hunter x Hunter with this necromancer power where he could control dead bodies. He takes it a little step further than what Neferpito can do, because he could basically add their personality back to them, but he still has somewhat of control. And I was kind of on the fence about that, because I was kind of like, if Keith had control of him this entire time, then how was he able to hunt down other demons and, you know, be a demon slayer if he was knowing about this, unless he was really on the low key? And how far does Keith's powers go, because I'm sure they weren't buddy neck and neck every time. So definitely made me question Keith's powers as far as that goes. But ultimately, just to find out the way things went, definitely a very good twist. It wasn't predictable for the most part. It was like one thing led to another. First we thought it was Deliora, then this entire time it was actually his father, but not quite his father, because he's under Keith's control. And I knew something was up for a while. If you've been watching my videos, I've been saying there's something not quite right about Silver. And I even referenced recently regarding the tombstone that was there, or not the tombstone, the cross that he was looking at, the grave. And to find out that this entire time he was looking around and he saw that his son was alive and he thought his son was dead this entire time, it just really added that much more of an impactful moment. Now, it makes sense with everything with Silver kind of having this hardcore look to him, and like, why would he be a demon slayer if he's a demon this entire time? He wasn't really ever a demon. He was just basically a dead body being controlled with a little bit of his personality added back. And when Gray broke down, like, at first I thought maybe he might just do it and, like, you know, he's gonna really be sad, but Gray's lost a lot of people in his life. Gray's been through a lot of shit in his life, and it would be reasonable for him to do something like this. Even though he would be completely devastated and everything, at the end of the day, it would be completely reasonable that he wouldn't want to kill him. He's lost his master, or he lost pretty much his entire family. He's lost everything. So to see that, even if it's just for a moment, he gets to be reunited with his father, it destroyed him inside. And I felt that emotion. It could have gone either way. It could have gone that he chopped him down. I would have been like, Gray, you cold motherfucker. Not just with your powers, you're a cold motherfucker. But to see that he actually was like, okay, I've lost too many people to do this now, and he broke down and cried, I was like, a real man can cry sometimes, and I really respected that moment of him being reunited with his father, and it was just overall done very well. If this was good in the manga, just imagine how it's going to be in the anime. Can't wait. And then the end of the chapter basically was setting up for Keith versus Juvia. Not that big of a fight or anything like that, but the only thing that I found was pretty weird, and I was like, okay, he just kind of pulled this out of his ass, was Silver having telepathy that he could speak with Juvia out of nowhere. I was like, where the fuck did this come from? But you could definitely see that this was, for a while now, actually focusing on Gray. Like, this is Tartarus, but at the same time, one of the sub-arcs in it is a whole great thing, because it's kind of been leading up from the end of the last arc with Ultir, and then now a lot of these little Groovia moments. Like, this was definitely giving a Groovia moment right here. Gray Juvia right there, because it's like, oh, she got to speak to the father, so getting introduced. Like, even though there's comedy elements to it, it is building up the relationship, and maybe by the end of this arc, Hiro Mashima might actually make them a couple. Who the fuck knows? Not that that's the biggest thing about this series, but ultimately, at least we're getting progression in that aspect, and what Juvia ultimately wants, and that's to be with Gray. But in my opinion, very emotional and very great chapter. I was just like, they did a great job. Hiro Mashima really pulled it off well. It wasn't that predictable. It wasn't ultimately like, I knew every step of the way. I had some hints, because he left some hints out there. The tombstone, him looking at the grave, him kind of not being completely bad, kind of helping Natsume Lisana out. So there was some hints there, but it wasn't predictable. So I was just like, bravo. And that moment where Gray broke down, I was like, any man that has even the slightest bit of feelings, regardless of the relationship you have with your father, you would do the same thing. Unless you're like a cold motherfucker. So I'm gonna give this one a 9. I felt it was a great chapter of Fairy Tail. Gray stuff, for some reason, is some of the best stuff in Fairy Tail. Usually, it's a rare moment where a Gray chapter is like absolutely terrible. Maybe it won't be the greatest, but it's a rare moment where you could say like, damn, that Gray moment was really shit. And this was a great Gray moment. This was just like, taking his backstory, which is arguably some of the best stuff in Fairy Tail, and adding on to it and extending it and putting some new things into it, and it was just like, damn. So 9 out of 10 for that bad boy. Now, as far as the new spin-offs go, between the gray one and the Zero one, the gray one was alright. It was good for the most part. It wasn't anything special. It was mainly just showing what happened to him, and coincidentally, it falls right in line with the chapters that's happening now, showing the backstory of what he did after Ull's death and kind of how he was trying to get stronger to fight Deliora. And I think this is before Fairy Tail, but after Ull's death, so it's kind of like he's at a weird stage where we really never got to see much of what he did at that particular point. The art was definitely noticeably different because it's not Hiro Mashima that's actually drawing this particular one. It's a different artist. So I noticed that, but overall, it was alright. Nothing special for the most part. I'll give it like maybe 6.5 or 7. It was just getting some cool little story of Gray and what happened after Ull's death, but it was just mainly like typical Fairy Tail, like, you know, I gotta do things, I gotta get stronger for my Nakama, so that wasn't that special. But the Fairy Tail Zero chapter, it was giving a nice little bit of tidbits and ultimately seeing where everything started, and I felt like between the art looking really solid, because Hiro did do the art for that one, and seeing like the origins of Mavis, Makarov's father, Tenro, the 7 years, it kind of adds so much context to some of the events that's happened in Fairy Tail in the main story. Like, this kind of might explain why she took 7 years to let go of the spear that she had around Fairy Tail when they were attacked by Acnologia. Maybe it could be because of the 7 years between what happened with her friend dying and the events of her landing on Tenro with the rest of her people. And kind of just seeing that Fairy Tail really started on like Tenro Jima and everything, it just really added a lot of nice information. I'm really looking forward to Zero. The gray one, I'll check it out here and there, but Fairy Tail Zero is right now what I'm looking forward to as far as the spin-offs go, and of course the main story. But Fairy Tail Zero right now, just seeing, you know, the second headmaster, well, what would be the second headmaster, is like, I want to know what made this motherfucker the exact moments that turned him to what he ultimately becomes, you know, Hades and just a fucked up person. I want to definitely see what led him that path. Also, Makarov's father, he kind of looks like Sting, except I highly doubt anybody can be as bad as Sting, so hopefully he'll be a really awesome character, but we gotta wait and see. I mean, Makarov's pretty dope, so I'm looking forward to seeing his father do some big things. Warred, out of all of them, his character design just looks the crustiest, and I'm like, it's Warred. I don't want to see water on his body again. See my Fairy Tail review on that one. You'll understand it. But ultimately, very good start for Fairy Tail Zero. I probably would give that like maybe an 8 out of 10. It was a very good first chapter, kind of seeing where Mavis began, like her whole Nakama stuff, losing her friend while she was part of that guild, and seeing like at this particular point, I believe she's 13 because I think she was 6 in the beginning and then it was 7 years later. So the Mavis we're seeing right now looks exactly identical to the Mavis that we're seeing at the end of this chapter. So is Mavis like a dead 13-year-old ghost? That's kind of what it seems to be at the very least. And that also makes me wonder, so what happened to Mavis that she died so young? Was there some spell where she just didn't want to grow up? She had like some female Peter Pan syndrome? But definitely a good start. And if you were indecisive between the Fairy Tail Zero or the Gray spinoff, go with the Fairy Tail Zero spinoff over the Gray one. The Gray one's cool, but Fairy Tail Zero is where it's at right now between those two. And ultimately, it was just a good day for Fairy Tail. Nothing really to complain about. I would say with the main chapter, the biggest thing that I was just kind of like, huh, was the mind reading shit that he used to like use telepathy with Juvia. But aside from that, it was a great chapter. Gray one was all right. The Gray spinoff, it was cool little information, and if you're a Gray fan, I'd imagine you love that. And the Fairy Tail Zero one was very good as well, starting off where Fairy Tail began and kind of adding little references to things that happen in the main story. Let me know what you think. First of all, did you hate that moment where Gray broke down? Did you want to see him just slay Silver there, or did you understand that a son's pact with his father, regardless of what happens, will always be strong like that? And between the two spin-offs, which one did you like more, Fairy Tail Zero or the Gray one? Did you like any of them at all, like, or you kind of just gonna skip and pass those? And just overall thoughts on all the Fairy Tail we got today. It was in abundance, but nothing really to complain about, so I'm glad about that. That's all I have for this long review video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, you can do so as well. That'd be awesome. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.